for the global Indian. As always, we start first with the headlines. Operation Sindhu, a huge success as Government of India vows to bring back 1,000 students who are coming back, those who are stranded in the Iran-Israel conflict. 3 flights to bring back the students. Prime Minister Modi's 3-nation 5-day tour yielded big gains to Bharat, from showcasing its middle power diplomacy to becoming a voice of the global south. We tell you Bharat's top 10 big gains. The world remains on the edge as Donald Trump gives a 2-week window to diplomacy. But with German Chancellor suggesting Israel is doing the world's dirty business, will America get tactical and military support from its European allies? We decode. Asim Munir's lunch meeting with Donald Trump may have huge impact on Pakistan's internal stability. Islamabad's Balochistan problem may worsen, adding to Asim Munir's woes. A week after the horrific crash of the Air India flight from Ahmedabad to London, black boxes are being investigated. The probe will offer clues to India and the world about how the world's safest aircraft crashed. Viewers, as Prime Minister Modi wrapped up his high-stakes 5-day, 3-nation tour, which included Cyprus, Croatia and Canada for the G7 summit, India finds itself in a much stronger geopolitical position. And what has the nation really gained from this high-stakes diplomacy and the power play that was at full display? Let's break that down. First up, we got those 10 big gains that Bharat had in this big diplomatic win for India. First up, the strategic validation that this puts for India. Let's put that out. The first gain for India, which is India's invite, cemented its place in terms of being such a big and important stakeholder outside the G7. That's the first big gain for India out of this 5-day blitzkrieg. Second, an important point, which is the middle power diplomacy that is on full display. India is now the perfect bridge that can act between polarized blocs. On one end, you have Russia, you have China, and then you have the other Western powers. Between that is the middle power diplomacy that belongs to India, which is what was on full display at these important events. Third, voice of the global south, the third big win for India. India is positioned to champion issues, whether it's food security, whether it's equitable vaccine access, whether it's debt relief, climate finance, all of which is essentially issues of the global south. And it was India who's championing that. India as the voice of the global south, champion of the global south, being put there as a big validation for India. Another big win for Bharat. Let's move ahead. The fourth big win for India, technology and AI collaboration. The AI summit that took place in France this year, you had Prime Minister Modi as a co-chair, because it is widely acknowledged that the India model when it comes to artificial intelligence, one that is not based on capitalism, one that is not based on closed source codes, but one that are available to all, open source codes. All that allows India to provide that perfect gateway to be the technology and AI collaborator, and add to it the UPI, big UPI revolution that India is being able to do so, not just in Paris, but in all global capitals. You see that. Another big win for India. Move ahead. Let's talk about now the climate finance leverage, something that India is best positioned to offer, simply because as one of the largest consumers of non-renewable energy, when India speaks about the transition, it matters. And that's why when the world wants to take a roadmap, a strategic direction towards what should be the view when it comes to clean technology, clean energy, India matters, as it speaks as one of the largest importers of non-renewable energy. Economic diplomacy, another big win that we saw this week for Bharat. Fast-tracking of bilateral trade negotiations, whether it is EU, whether it's several others, pitching India as the perfect alternative to China-based, China-centric supply chains is another something, big win as far as India is concerned. The other 2-3 important points were the energy security transition, that India is best positioned to offer, advocate for stable energy supplies while seeking investments in green hydrogen, in critical minerals. There's been a lot of scramble when it comes to critical minerals, but all driven by capitalist instinct, something that you've seen with America putting that through. But India's position has been completely different, something that allows for the world to be able to find some sort of a roadmap. The last two wins for India, countering China through alignment, not alliance. Extremely important, because without formally aligning with Western blocs, India can signal convergence or Indo-Pacific security, tech standards, supply chain diversifications, all while keeping its strategic autonomy intact. And lastly, the geopolitical risk management that helps India hedge the risks amidst global turbulence, especially regional fallout with pariah Pakistan and China. Those were some of the big wins. And lastly, allowing, of course, once again becoming that perfect bridge when it comes to the Indian diaspora. Far and flung places, you also have the Indian diaspora being connected, being part of the India story. I'm going to now play out the soundbite of Prime Minister Modi on this 5-day blitzkrieg, and then we move ahead.
पश्चिम एशिया और यूरोप में चल रहे कॉन्फ्लिक्ट को लेकर हम दोनों ने चिंता व्यक्त की है। इनका नकारात्मक प्रभाव केवल उस क्षेत्र तक सीमित नहीं है। हम दोनों मानते हैं कि यह युद्ध का युग नहीं है। संवाद से समाधान और स्थिरता की बहाली, ये मानवता की पुकार है।
Shifting focus, viewers, to the first wide-angle story on the show. Germany just said the quiet part out loud, which is the German Chancellor not mincing his words when he said what many leaders whisper behind closed doors, which is that Israel's not just defending itself, it's defending us. It's actually doing West's dirty work. This is what the German Chancellor said when he met several world leaders at the G7 summit. Now, the question on everyone's mind, will Europe and the US finally step out of the shadows, stand by Israel, not just with words, but with action? Let's break this down. Imagine a fire breaks out next door, someone rushes in, puts it out, but not before they get burned. What the German Chancellor said means just that Israel is doing the firefighting and getting scorched in the process. Iran's missiles aren't just landing in Tel Aviv or Jerusalem. The German top leader warns that it could be anywhere. It could be anywhere in any other capital, which is why he said that this is the West's dirty business. Are we then looking at this regional conflict spiraling into a much bigger global security crisis? So what should the West do? Should it go beyond just statements and sanctions? Should Europe and the US now actively support Israel? Or is this what German Chancellor's statement should be read as? That a possible support could be on the anvil. Is the West all in on the Israel-Iran conflict? With Russia and China coming out in support of Iran and Western allies backing Israel, does a larger escalation seem probable now? Well, in geopolitics, viewers, doing the dirty work often means making the hard calls no one else wants to touch. But inaction has a price too. And the clock right now is pretty much ticking. And as we speak, while at one end you have the EU allies now seeming to have much greater clarity in terms of how they view the Middle East conflict, they are awaiting a word from America, the president, who will not decide right now, but after a fortnight. And this report tells you the twists and turns Trump's Middle East strategy has taken in this last fortnight. 14 days. That's how long President Trump has paused a decision that could ignite a war with Iran. After signaling the US might strike Iran's underground nuclear site, Trump suddenly slammed the brakes, citing a chance at diplomacy. Some critics even call it taco. Trump always chickens out.
Wall Street analysts have coined a new term called the taco trade. They're saying Trump always chickens out on your tariff threats, and that's why markets are higher this week. What's your response to that?
I kick out?
Chicken out.
Oh, isn't that nice? Chicken out. I've never heard that.
But Trump's history says otherwise. He sets deadlines before and does nothing later. Yet this isn't about tweets or trade wars. This is about war plans. Before the war broke out, Trump asked Israel not to act. But then after Israel's strike, Trump called them excellent. Trump then warned Khamenei that he knows the exact location of the Iranian supreme leader, and then doubled down on the warning of an unconditional surrender, only to say he may or may not do anything about Iran. As things stand, 14 days is too long a time to predict in the complex and volatile Middle East. Well, viewers, Trump may be waiting for 14 days, the war is not. And Priyanka Deojain tells you all about the cluster bombs banned by 100 countries and used by Iran in the latest escalation.
Israel has alleged that Iran has fired a cluster bomb missile. You can see that in the sky. Now, this is the first reported use of the cluster bomb in the Israel-Iran war. Israel says that the missile was actually aimed at civilian areas across a big distance. According to reports, the missile was fired over central Israel. This is a heavily populated area of civilians. The missile explodes at 7 kilometers in altitude. 20 bomblets have actually been scattered across an 8-kilometer radius over central Israel. These are smaller bombs after the outer shell has been detonated. Now, Iran and Israel are not part of the cluster bomb ban. Over 100 countries across the world are a part of this cluster bomb ban.
All right, Alison Federica, who's an analysis director at the Geopolitical Futures, joins us as the top voice this week on the broadcast. Alison, good to have you on the show. Let me start by asking you the one statement that the German Chancellor said, that this is Israel doing the West's dirty job right now. Is this indicative of the fact that there is complete unity amongst America and EU allies in terms of how they view this fight and how they are likely to join ahead going forward?
So I think you're right. It is a very candid statement that you don't normally see in leadership speaking out publicly. I think it is a statement that reflects a shared interest in a non-nuclear Iran. I don't think that it says anything further in terms of unity for military action taken by all parties in Europe or the US. They historically do not necessarily go hand in hand, and the impetus needed for each country to react is very different. But they do have that shared interest of not seeing a nuclear Iran, and they all have the shared benefit of the Israeli strikes taking out a lot of the nuclear sites that are located within Iran.
Mm-hmm. How long do you see before a clearer direction is taken? Trump may have said 14 days, but it looks unlikely that a decision could be held till 14 days?
As you guys already said, a lot can happen in 14 days. And so I think rather than thinking about conflict in terms of timelines, because those are very unpredictable and often don't really allow for the back and forth that's going to happen, is to think more of red lines, more of what actions are going to compel the other side to take greater action. So any moves by Iran that target U.S. military targets or kill U.S. personnel, civilian or military, would push the U.S. closer to taking action. Any moves by the U.S. to try to take out that Fordo nuclear site that remains in Iran may also provoke Iran to, say, target Iraqi oil sites or other places in the region that would be problematic for the West in terms of oil markets. So there's a lot of room for each side to continue acting and to continue escalating in the conflict. The question is, what is going to push them further? And right now, each party has been fairly careful about trying to keep this conflict between Israel and Iran for the moment, because nobody else wants to see this escalation spread beyond that.
But it doesn't look like either side is backing down, or nobody's exercising restraint, nobody's even advising caution right now.
Yes. So that is very true. Again, the U.S. involvement would be a game changer. If Iran is able to mobilize any of its proxy groups, which have been significantly weakened, the other factor that we need to look at, too, is just the domestic politics in both of these countries. There's a distinct possibility that internal problems in both of these countries could actually be the force that draws back military escalation in terms of popular support working against the government and providing a force. So the Iranian leadership has been divided prior to this conflict, and there is a real risk that as the conflict continues, it continues to weaken and lose power to the point that they have no choice but to negotiate or capitulate because they are not strong enough internally to continue fighting. The Israeli government is now rallying around the flag, but again, after the October 7th attacks last year, had huge internal fighting and problems, and we are now seeing that the public sentiment in Israel, while they supported the initial strikes, are starting to pull back because they don't want to see a protracted conflict where Israel itself is again the target. And that loss of popular support could also impact the Israelis' ability to continue their campaign as well.
Alison, finally, what shot does diplomacy have right now, given the fact that today is when some of those talks are taking place regarding Iranian nuclear program?
I think diplomacy has a possibility of pausing the conflict for a short period of time right now. Ultimately, the issues at hand have been long-standing. The Iran nuclear program is nothing new. Conflict between Iran and Israel is nothing new. And so if we see any success by diplomacy, it's going to be for a pause in the actual conflict right now. I don't think diplomacy is going to be able to resolve the conflict at this point in time. And you're going to have to see either a major military movement or major political shifts in these countries.
All right, Alison and Federica, thanks so much for joining us live from Washington, D.C. on the story that the world is watching for. In fact, on that note, I'm going to slip into a short break, come back on the other side with more stories. Stay with us.
तू ही तो है जिसकी सच्चाई वाली क्लैरिटी की वजह से मैं आज यहाँ हूँ।
गोल्ड प्लस सिल्वॉक्सी मिरर्स, ऐसी क्लैरिटी कि आपको सिर्फ सच नजर आए, चाहे कितने भी साल बीत जाएं।
If it matters to you, if it matters to you, if it matters to you, it matters to India. It matters to India. It matters to India. And it matters to me. And it matters to me.
India Matters with Shivaru, only on NDTV 24/7.
As the Iran-Israel war escalates, Indian students in the crossfire.
हमें as soon as possible evacuate किया जाए.
War zone worries grip parents. The next Indian mass evacuation ahead. NDTV at Ground Zero.
Is your business future ready? Join the 13-week strategic ESG certification program for business sustainability and growth for CXO and business leaders by NDTV, Terry and Zenora. Master global ESG frameworks, gain real-world tools, and lead with impact. Starts July 13th. Enroll now and power your business with sustainability.
Do you really know the company you invest in? What is the real picture behind presentations and claims? Is the outlook as rosy as the company claims? Know Your Company, powered by NDTV Profit Research, shines a light on the biggest stock market movers.
How often
have you turned away from debates that descend into endless fights? We bring you a show where every question is answered, where every debate finds its resolution.
The other wide-angle story on the show, viewers. There are no free lunches in geopolitics. Certainly not for Pakistan's army chief, Asim Munir, who may have thought he scored a strategic meal ticket with US President Donald Trump. But behind the diplomatic optics is a very simple calculation. America needs access to Pakistan's military bases as tensions with Iran simmer in the Middle East. While Islamabad might dangle a Nobel narrative for domestic consumption, Washington is eyeing strategic utility alone. But what's being served on this table will impact Asim Munir's own backyard, and that is Balochistan, stretching across nearly 40% of the country's landmass. Balochistan is rich in resources, but poor in rights. Its people alienated and impoverished, with 70% living below the poverty line. And now Baloch separatist groups have fought the Pakistani state for decades. But if Pakistan enters the Iran-US-Israel triangle, Balochistan may turn into an open wound. A conflict next door will not only destabilize the border, it may empower the separatists with dangerous regional alliances. Balochi separatists, remember, is not a monolith group. There are multiple ethnicities, multiple languages, and some even have patronage in Tehran. And those fault lines will come to the fore, impacting Pakistan's internal stability even more. Add to it the growing pro-Iran sentiment amongst the Pakistani public. With the current government's deep unpopularity, any perceived alignment with the US and Israel against Iran could possibly be the last straw for this government. Pakistan may be celebrating that it has managed to get inside Trump's strategic calculus, but the ramifications will be significant, militarily, economically, as well as socially. Remember, whether it's the Iraqi Kurds or the Balochis in Pakistan, all rebellions till now have been crushed brutally, sometimes with the help of neighbors coming together. But all those scenarios don't exist anymore, which is why Iran-Pakistan coming together to crush the Balochi separatist movement may not be a reality for Asim Munir anymore. A towering dream just hit a fiery wall. Elon Musk's Starship, high SpaceX bold bet on taking humans to Mars, was ripped apart in a dramatic explosion during a critical test in Texas. So has the Mars dream exploded too? Here's what really happened and what it could mean for humanity's future in space.
It was supposed to be another confident stride towards the stars. Instead, on June 18th, Ship 36 was reduced to scorched metal. The static fire test, a routine but high-stakes trial at SpaceX's Starbase facility, ended in flames. An explosion that tore through the super heavy booster and echoed across the Texas coast. Thankfully, no injuries were reported, but the mission shaken, and the Mars dream temporarily scorched, but not dead. This marks the third major setback in as many months. A test failure in the Caribbean, a loss over the Atlantic, now devastation in Texas. Each failure dents public confidence, but not necessarily Musk's momentum. Because in the SpaceX playbook, failure isn't fatal. It's part of the process. The vision remains staggering. A fully reusable rocket system, a possible uncrewed Mars mission by 2026. Humanoid robots laying the groundwork for human colonists. That roadmap hasn't been erased, but it's being redrawn. The FAA is now investigating. Starbase is temporarily offline, and regulators are watching closely. SpaceX calls it an anomaly. Critics say it's recklessness. Supporters call it a learning curve. And Musk, he's been there before.
First World View on the show. It looks like the gloves are off in MAGA land. The latest flashpoint, Tucker Carlson, MAGA's loudest isolationist, the most controversial media personality, a one-time Trump champion who has run his course with the administration. Carlson ambushing Senator Ted Cruz on Iran is the latest reminder of the deep cracks that exist in America's right. Cruz's hawkish push to back Israel's strikes may have been the trigger, but it exposed the many layers of the MAGA movement. Even Trump jumped in, torpedoing Carlson. The movement that brought Trump to a landslide victory might be tearing. And the Hawks versus isolationists, the firebrands versus realists. And well, viewers, it's just starting. The world's fuse is burning fast and Europe's racing to stop the explosion. In Geneva, the UK, France and Germany, once called the E3, are back at the table, hoping diplomacy can douse the flames ignited by Israel's surprise attack. With President Trump hitting pause, possible US attack, the clock is ticking. British Foreign Secretary David Lammy says there's a 2-week window before diplomacy turns to dust. But Iran isn't biting, its foreign minister blasting Western nations, saying there's no negotiations while bombs fly. As missiles fly, hospitals burn and death tolls climb, one thing is clear, this isn't a war of weapons, it's a war of wills. The E3's gamble that words can still stop the war. And if they can't wait, what comes next, no one knows. All right, viewers, with that, it's a wrap on this edition of India Sense. And as we wrap things up, we leave you with the most viral moments of this year's G7.
If it matters to you, if it matters to you, if it matters to you, it matters to India, it matters to India, and it matters to me, and it matters to me.
India Matters with Shivaru, only on NDTV 24/7.
I've been reporting on all issues big and small from Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, rest of South India, bringing you all the action, all that you need to know, all that you want to know.
The energy of maximum city is infectious. I'm bringing that energy in our news coverage from financial capital Mumbai.
Covering from the southernmost part of India over the last 23 years, I bring in-depth and 360-degree coverage from the Dravidian heartland.
The land of Mishti, also known for its bitter politics. I have seen much water flow under the Howrah Bridge, covering Bengal in all its vivid colors.
India's IT capital is always bustling, a city full of startups, stories and surprises. And I keep you ahead on all the Bengaluru buzz.
The markets move fast.
And so should your portfolio. Expert insights, real-time stock picks.
Do I buy Ola?
Should I hold CDSL for the long term?
Buy, sell or hold.
The answers you need, straight from the experts.
Callers from India and across the world. Connect live, ask, decide and invest wisely.
Your portfolio, your future. Ask Profit.
In today's interconnected world, India's voice is more crucial than ever. When India speaks, the world listens. At NDTV World, we are that voice, bringing you intelligent and insightful news from India and beyond. From geopolitics and diplomacy to economic shifts, migrations, tech disruptions, and the stories of our diaspora. We cover the news that shapes our global future. NDTV World, your new home for global news is here.
Hello and welcome to the Southern View. I'm Peter Raghav. Lots lined up on the show this evening. including the Rappa controversy in Andhra Pradesh. But first, the headlines we're tracking this hour. Prime Minister Modi makes a major infrastructure push in Odisha, says he spoke to US President Trump on the phone during G7 and declined the White House invite because he wanted to be with his people. A housing scam controversy hits the Congress in Karnataka after an alleged audio clip of a Congress MLA complaining about money being taken for housing goes viral. BJP hits out at the top Congress leadership. Well, over 100 Indian students are set to return from Iran in 3 flights, for which Iran has made an exception. Well, first up this evening, focus on the powerful political and business Maran family in Chennai. Sun TV issued a categorical statement refuting reports of a legal dispute between the two Maran brothers, DMK Central Chennai MP Dayanidhi Maran and chairman of the Sun TV network Kalanidhi Maran. Sun Network statement came in the wake of reports of a legal notice from Dayanidhi Maran to his brother Kalanidhi and 7 others. The legal notice reportedly demanded restoration of the company's shareholding structure to its pre-September 2003 status, when it was a closely held family firm in which the Maran family and the family of the late Tamil Nadu Chief Minister M. Karunanidhi owned shares. Sun TV in its statement said that the alleged matter dates back to 22 years when the company was a closely held private limited company, and that, and I'm quoting this, the statements allegedly made in the articles are incorrect, misleading, speculating, defamatory and not supported by facts or law. It added that it does not have any bearing on the business of the company or its day-to-day functioning, and being the family matter of the promoter are purely personal in nature. Remember, the Marans are close relatives of Tamil Nadu Chief Minister M.K. Stalin, closely intertwined with the Dravida Munnetra Kazhagam. Their father, Murasoli Maran, was the nephew of late Tamil Nadu Chief Minister M. Karunanidhi. Joining me now are Vishwanath Nair of NDTV Profit, who's been tracking the business fallout, and Sam Daniel from Chennai as well. Vishwanath, first to you, what's the sense you're picking up from the business community? You've covered several family disputes. What's the buzz in Mumbai?
Well, Virat, the conversation since last evening has been quite interesting, actually, in the business community, because what they're trying to understand is the timing of the entire thing. The fact that these shared transfers allegedly happened in 2003, that is what Dayanidhi Maran has alleged in his legal notice. He said that they were illegally transferred to Kalanidhi Maran, and he ended up owning 60% in Sun TV. So if it is now a 22-year-old technically case, why is it now that Dayanidhi Maran is putting out this legal notice to his brother? The other aspect of all of this is the impact on Sun TV. So what we are seeing right now was some amount of impact on the Sun TV stock. It fell to about 4% during the day, fell by about 4% during the day, and then it closed closer to 2% lower than the last open. So there was some impact. It wasn't material enough, but if there is an overhang that lasts for long about the ownership of the company and the status of the family, then that becomes a real concern for a listed company like Sun TV Network, because a lot of retail investors are also part of this network now with their shareholding.
Right, important overview that you're giving there, Vishwanath. Thanks very much for that. Sam Daniel, from the political side, one has observed the power of the family for many, many years. There was a fallout in 2007 when Sun TV moved out of Anna Arivalayam, the DMK's headquarters. It was building up since the demise of Murasoli Maran. What's the buzz you're picking up in Chennai? Has there been any on-record comment from Dayanidhi Maran or those close to him, or even from the DMK? What's the sense you're picking up, because there are close family ties to the DMK's first family? In fact, this is part of the DMK's first family, as well as other political leaders there in Tamil Nadu.
Virirago, both the brothers or their close associates are completely tight-lipped. No word yet. Even their lawyers are not speaking. So there's no clarity yet whether the senior brother has received the notice. Has it been sent? No clarity on that. But the DMK clearly, consciously stays away from what they call as a purely family issue. None of the spokespersons are talking on record. But off record, they say it's again like any other family dispute and the party will have nothing to do with that. Although, on record, Dayalu Amal, Chief Minister M.K. Stalin's mother, is a shareholder and her name has been mentioned in that notice reportedly sent by Dayanidhi Maran. But this certainly brings back memories of the family feud during the days of Karunanidhi as Chief Minister and as a leader, when there was a family feud between the Karunanidhi family and the Maran brothers. On two counts. One, the Karunanidhi family was not happy with the way the shares were divided among the family members, among the shareholders in the family. And reports at that time suggested the Maran brothers paid them 100 crore rupees. Not many were happy about that at that point in time. And there was also that report in a Tamil newspaper owned by the Maran brothers, in which they had a survey published, which Karunanidhi himself said tried to divide a wedge between his two sons, M.K. Alagiri and M.K. Stalin, projecting M.K. Alagiri in a very bad light, and that again had was responsible for the feud at that point in time. As a result, Sun TV was moved out of the DMK headquarters, and that gave birth to a new channel, Kalinga TV, owned by the Karunanidhi family. Of course, later they patched up, and Karunanidhi himself was quite relieved at that point in time, and that led to everything honky-dory. But in terms of the relationship between the two siblings, the two brothers, many say it was quite strained for quite some time, particularly over a feeling by the younger brother, Dayanidhi Maran, that he has been given a raw deal. What kind of an impact will it have on the party? That's something we'll have to wait and watch. But the party clearly distances itself at the moment at least.
Right, the party insulating itself, perhaps other top leaders, including Stalin, we believe are unlikely to get involved in what's seen as a Maran family dispute. But remember, Sam, the two brothers were extremely close to each other, stay next to each other at boat club for many years. They've stuck through together. So one will have to wait and see how this plays out, whether there will be a rapprochement within to keep a lid on this issue. Of course, no public on-record comments from either side. Thanks very much, Sam Daniel, as well as Vishwanath Nair for that. Now to the Rappa controversy in Andhra Pradesh. One of the punch dialogues in Allu Arjun starrer Pushpa 2 is now starring in Andhra's political drama. Rappa is what Pushpa says, threatening to behead all villains one by one in the climax of Pushpa 2. And a poster with that dialogue at a Jagan Mohan Reddy public function claiming Jagan will go after TDP when he comes to power led to the TDP criticizing Jagan of threatening violence. It turned out that the party worker holding the poster was reportedly a former TDP man who shifted over to the YSRCP, and Jagan Mohan Reddy delivered the Rappa dialogue at a press conference, making a viral impact and hitting back at the TDP. Listen in to this exchange before we head into the Rappa face-off this evening on the Southern View.
జాతరలో పొట్టేళ్ల తలకాయలు కోసినట్టు రప్ప నరికేస్తాం. అది ఒక పోస్టరా? సినిమా డైలాగులు పెట్టినా కూడా తప్పేనా? అసలు డెమోక్రసీలో ఉన్నామా, డెమోక్రసీలో లేమా స్వామి మనం? ఇది నాకు అర్థం కాదు. టీడీపీని రప్ప కోసేస్తానని కూడా అంటున్నాడని కూడా సంతోషపడదాం. నిజంగానే బాధ ఉంటుందేమో కదా వాళ్ళకు కూడా. ఆయన ఆక్రోశం చూపిస్తూ ఏమన్నాడు, ఏ జాతరలో? గంగమ్మ జాతరలో పొట్టేళ్ళు తలలు నరికినట్టు రప అని నరుకుతానని చెప్పి ఆయన అంటానంటే దాని అర్థమైంది. మరి
డైవర్ట్ చేయాలి పబ్లిక్ అటెన్షన్. దట్ ఈస్ దేర్ ఆర్ట్ ఆర్ దేర్ ఇంటెన్షన్స్. అందుకే క్రిమినల్స్ ఎప్పుడు కూడా క్రిమినల్ బ్రెయిన్సే పనిచేస్తూనే ఉంటాయి వాళ్ళకు. నరికేస్తాం, చంపేస్తాం, రఫ్ ఆడతాం, రఫా నరికేస్తాం, లేదంటే గంగ జాతరలో బలి ఇచ్చేస్తాం.
Why is Andhra politics going rappa over the rappa comment? Joining me this evening, Professor Jyotsna Tirunagari of the TDP, Karthik Yellapragada of the YSRCP, and NDTV's very own Uma Sudhir. Jyotsna Tirunagari, first to you. Why are you all worried about going rappa? Give us a context to this.
Well, it's being the nature of the people who are actually encouraging such kind of remarks. See, I'll tell you one thing. In one of the events that Mr. Jagannath Reddy has attended, some people have put up a poster which is objectionable, which actually incites violence. Police thought that should be taken into consideration, and there should be some sort of an action taken against them. Immediately, this man puts a press meet and says, "What's wrong in saying that? Manchidega means it's good only, no. So what's wrong in saying that is this statement? This is the man who has been the chief minister of the state for 5 years, 2019 to 2024, and he is heading a political party called YSRCP, in which an MLC of his, literally kills a man and delivers the body, in which one of his MPs does, objectionable gestures against women. In that party, one of his close aide, his own brother, in fact, is accused in murdering his own uncle. So this is the history of that party, Rahul. And see, it's not about me or anybody else talking about it. It's like, how can you accept such kind of things in the society? You're actually putting up a poster
Karthik,
saying that
this
I'll
reflects
literally kill you.
violent mindset in Andhra politics, says Jyotsna Tirunagari.
Hey, hi. Thanks for having me in the show. So, if violence and betrayal has a face, that was Mr. Chandrababu Naidu, is what we feel in the state of Andhra Pradesh. So I'll actually, put some facts, what's happening in the state for the last 12 months. There are about 2,466 cases registered never ever in the history, just in 1 year against YSRCP workers. 766 attacks on the YSRCP leaders, social media activists 720. And in the same journalist fraternity as you do, there are about 63 cases just in the last 12 months, and 11 attacks on journalists. 390 were murdered who are said to be the YSRCP leaders, and there are about 73 cases just for social organization, people representing public office, the leaders of the organizations, etc. So what's happening in the state? This Andhra Pradesh is culturally, the movie capital of India. And again, there is one person who's holding a placard who happens to be a TDP person, and we still feel that he's been deployed there. And I know Jagannath Reddy did not say by himself. The journalists were asking, that was the statement given, and he's telling that, there's nothing to incite violence in here. What's happening in the state? They're about, even a sumoto.
Quickly respond, Jyotsna, before I go to Uma, to put a perspective on this. Quickly respond to what Karthik is raising.
See, let's assume if what Karthik ji says is correct, then why did Jagannath Reddy has a problem if it's a TDP worker and he's been arrested and action been taken against him? Why does they have a problem on it? We are talking about incitement of violence. I'm sorry, Mr. Karthik, 1 second, sir, 1 second. The point is, in the press conference hosted by Mr. Jagannath Reddy, he very clearly said what's wrong in such kind of statements. I think, sir, he should take back those words, should apologize. That's one thing. It's very clear. I think, he doesn't even apologize for, literally demeaning women. He doesn't even apologize, but at least here, for inciting violence, I think he should apologize.
I'll have to jump in here. Just a quick point. There are about dozen plus press meets. None of the data is getting challenged, and now this is all diverted using cinema dialogues. No one talks about fiscals. No one talks about deficits. There is dozens and dozens of data out there.
You can always come to the assembly.
None of that is getting. Give us a context to why this issue has suddenly snowballed so strongly. Does it largely reflect the deeper realities which we've been discussing of bitter animosity in Andhra politics, the kind we had used to see between DMK and AIDMK perhaps in Tamil Nadu many years ago?
strong influence of film certainly on politics in Andhra Pradesh, and very often we have seen the film world being reflected in many senses in political life, and dialogues being borrowed from there is also not unusual. But in this case, of course, there is an endorsement of violence which perhaps certainly needs condemnation. But what I must point out is that both these political parties, very strong regional parties, have been very sharp against each other on social media and in any other exchange, and they don't leave any opportunity at all to hit under the belt either. And actually they have a history of uncivilized kind of a language being used against each other, and this perhaps is no exception either. And in this particular case as well, whether he belonged to the Telugu Desam, whether he belongs to the YSRCP, that also will continue to be debated. What is planted and what is real, all that also will continue to be debated on social media or elsewhere. But yes, the level of politics going down is something that both the parties and the state certainly needs to worry about. But